Hello and welcome to Newsnight. I am Ladi Akiridoluale. It's our pleasure to have you be with us. Security, economy, and infrastructure will be the top priority areas for my guest on the program today, who aspires to be Nigeria's next president. My guest will support a restructuring of the Federation, as well as massive investment in expanding agriculture value chains to improve employment generation levels and increase national revenue. Newsnight talks to the former special advisor on political affairs to former President Olusegun Obasanjo and now presidential aspirant on the platform of the People's Redemption Party, PRP, Dr. Usman Bugaje. Dr. Bugaje, welcome to the program. Thank you for your time.
It's my great pleasure.
Let us begin with a look back at some of your antecedents, some of which we were discussing in the run-up to this. Since between 1999 and today, you have traversed quite a number of the political institutions in Nigeria. You were special advisor to former President Olusegun Obasanjo. You served in the House of Representatives. You've been acting national secretary of a political party, amongst other things. Of course, you are a scholar, an academician, and all of that. I'm just wondering, do you think that political party development in Nigeria has moved in the direction in which it ought to move, considering that we have spent the last 23 years now in this democratic journey? I asked that question of someone like you because you've been in PDP, you've been in ACN, and now you're in PRP. Do you think that the party movement, the development of party structure in Nigeria has moved along the right path?
I don't think so, unfortunately. The party is very critical to democracy, because it is the platform that organizes people, is the platform that harvests ideas that can produce the kind of development and address the problems of that particular country or society. These political parties that we have, with all their numbers, I'm afraid they have not been able to move in the direction of democracy. One of the major deficits that can easily be mentioned is what is often called internal democracy. Most of these parties belong to big men who fund it, and therefore they dictate the kind of things that happen in the party, including the recruitment processes. In other words, when you come to do primaries, from which you go to the general election, those selected to fly to be the candidates of the party in the general election are often not selected, through an internally democratic processes. And of course, they have become also over time cash and carry. A party should be defined by its content. It should be defined by what it stands for. At the moment, I can't say, what does PDP stands for? What does APC stands for? What exactly is the difference between the APC and the PDP? The people who are in PDP now were in APC before. The people who are in APC now were in PDP before. And the way they move in and out suggests to you that there is no content in this party. There is nothing that defines a particular, any of these particular parties. So most of these parties, have lost their content, if they ever had one. Most of these parties don't have internal democracy. They are governed or dictated by those, money bags who basically fund the party. And the parties themselves do not harvest ideas. Popular participation is the essence of political parties. You don't have that popular participation. You do not look at the different sectors of society and try to bring in young people, you bring in disabled, you bring in women, you bring in. I remember when I was in the AC, which later became ACN, we had to we had to amend our constitution in one of the conventions to make sure that those who turn up for the convention, the delegates, include more women and include more young people. Otherwise, it will be dominated by people selected, by those who basically fund the party. So this is a very sad development, and it's something that we have got to correct if we want this democracy to sustain.
There are those who will be listening to you and saying, how does Dr. Bugaje know that the PRP is going to be any different from the APC or the PDP along the lines that you have already spoken?
In the last 1 year, myself and my colleagues have engaged almost all the 18 political parties. And we have discovered that the PRP is the only one that can allow the kind of changes that we think are critical in transforming the parties and making them more democratic and more attractive to those who are more competent and who are more credible. One of the things that we did, we engaged the parties, we sat down with the leadership of the parties, and we sat down with others, and many of them either did not understand quite what we want to do, or clearly they don't belong to that kind of wavelength. And you can easily identify when you are talking and you find the person is not really interested in what you're talking about. But the PRP accepted us, wrote us a letter confirming that they accept some of these ideas, and those ideas they did not understand. They set up a committee, and we sat with that committee. We explained to them what we mean by what we are proposing, and they understood, they commended us, and they accepted. And that's why we decided to come into the PRP. One of the areas that they said they didn't quite understand because it's something new was a collegiate leadership, a leadership of a team of experts. And this is what we think is best for this country, meaning that the idea of putting one candidate, who is going to be either the gubernatorial or presidential, and who alone can fix the state or fix the country, is something which is not tenable. Therefore, we said, wherever you have a candidate, he must show us his team. He must come with his team. When we elect a candidate, we must see his team. What is his team made up of? Who are the experts around him? Where are the economists around him? Where are the lawyers around him? Where are the engineers? Where are the scientists, social scientists? Where are the experts who can now give us the confidence that when this man comes into office, he has competent, capable, and credible Nigerians around him to make sure that they do the right thing? Because if I can't see your team, it's quite risky to just simply elect you, because then I am not too sure who is really going to be your key advisors, and how can I be sure that these are people who are competent? We have seen this in the APC. It took 6 months for them to decide who are going to be the cabinet ministers. By the time they came, we saw that these are people who really do not have the capacity, and they have proved us right by basically destroying the country. You can see where the economy is at the moment. You can see where the issue of security is at the moment, worse than what they took over from the PDP. And this is precisely because people have not paid attention to the credibility and the competence of the team. They're just looking at the individual. But if you ignore the team, then you are taking a risk. And this is why we say every party has to include in its own constitution and the processes of leadership recruitment. Anybody who comes to be a chief executive, especially the presidency of this country, must come with a team of people. They can be 10, they can be more, they can be less, but there has to be a team. And that team has to reflect the diversities in this country. We have to see in this team people coming from different parts of the country. We have to see in this team the gender diversity. We have to see also the generational diversity. This is the inclusion in the team that will now guarantee inclusion in everything that the government is going to do.
Given that scenario, though, as it is now, we're in the political season of selecting candidates. And I have it on good authority that you are one of those aspiring to lead, especially at the level of the president, and you want to use the PRP platform for that purpose. Now, what are you telling those who would select you, shall we say, or elect you as the candidate of the party will be the #1 task that you have should you find yourself in that hot seat?
Well, the first and most important thing in this country is security at the moment. Without security, you can't open schools. Without security, you can't run factories. Without security, you can't do agriculture. Without security, you can't do anything literally. Therefore, security is the first and most important thing. You have to settle the issue of security. That will automatically allow life to resume, economy to grow, and a number of other things to flow. But without tackling the security issue, you may not be able to get anything done. In fact, if we do not tackle security, the little space that is available now is going to shrink, and we'll find the whole population or the whole country itself shrinking, because then the bandits and the insurgents will all trap us in some dwellings and will not be able to do anything. So it's very important that this issue is tackled before any other thing else.
Given that also, let us look at, because you mentioned security, let us look at the security situation, particularly first in northern Nigeria before we come down south, because it seems as if the characteristics in both parts are different. In the case of the northern part, we started off with Boko Haram, which was essentially an ideologically based or faith-based terrorist group. But now that has since morphed into something else. We now have bandits who are after territory. We have cattle rustlers. We have kidnappers, and those who are also looking to put one group, set up one group against the other. Because these various attributes have happened up north, of course, we have the southern part where you have secessionist tendencies and groups saying that they will make the country ungovernable if they don't get their way. The question is this: have we politicized what is essentially an all-for-one approach to security, and that is why we seem not to be able to tackle it?
Well, there are a number of things that are fairly clear at the moment, and there are others that you need to investigate further to establish beyond reasonable doubt. Clearly, there is no political will to fight insecurity. Two, there are no equipments. The people who are involved are not properly trained and properly equipped. Three, there is clear problem of integrity of the commanders. And experts in security have said that any war you are fighting and you have commanders who don't have integrity, you can't win that war. To win a war, you need the integrity of your commanders. There is a whole war economy that is developed where so many people are making the kill, making huge amount of money for no job really done. And this has made them to have, invested interest, entrenched interest in maintaining the status quo. So these are things that you have to address. The political will comes from the political leadership. They say once there is a will, there will always be a way. Now, that I can assure you, myself and my team have got the will to deal with this issue and to stop it. But of course, you have to understand that in all these insurgencies, bandits, and even the secessionist tendencies that you find in southern parts of the country, all these are inextricably linked to our economy. In fact, the Boko Haram is actually a revolt of the young people against Nigeria's political economy that has literally impoverished them, excluded them. And so we have to think in terms of the solution, also a kind of an economic package that will give hope to young people. And this can be done without too much hassle. It's just that the attention of government is not on the people, it's on itself. How much can they make out of the opportunity that they see? Otherwise, there is enough resources to tackle the issue of joblessness within the community. And if time allows, I can give you a number of these options that we have. For example, by the time you fix agricultural value chains, you'll be able to take care of a number of jobs, and you would have boosted production. You would have added value to whatever you are producing. So the value of what you produce and what you sell eventually is going to be many times higher than when you sell the raw materials. So that will also increase prosperity. So these are the kind of ways you can create jobs and help the economy. And then you will stop the recruitment of these people. If you recall, one of these Black American writers, James Baldwin, made this very important statement in his book, I Think the Fire Next Time. He said the most dangerous person in any community is somebody who has nothing more to lose. Somebody who has lost everything and he has nothing more to lose. He doesn't mind if the whole world blasts or blows out. Meaning, these are the kind of people we are producing. By impoverishing the rural community, you are also producing more and more and more dangerous people. So this is just one particular sector of the economy. Another sector, if you look at the young people at the moment, they don't have skills. All of them are trying to escape to Europe in this very dangerous journeys that they undertake. Unfortunately, they don't have skills. But we have got institutions here that can give these skills that Europe requires. Germany, I understand, is has a deficit of skilled work of about 400,000. In Britain, just the drivers of big vehicles, which require to be, it's a skill that requires to be internationally licensed. They require something in the region of 50,000. Other countries in Europe require these skills because European population is not growing. It's actually falling down. You can plot the graph and see when the last Frenchman is going to die. Because they're not growing. Their population, they have aging population that are also creating a lot of huge demand on their economy. So we can fill in the gap. This is a huge opportunity. Even in this Ukraine war, we have an opportunity. There is a problem of wheat production now. The world is looking for wheat. We have the land, we have the water, we have the labor. What are we waiting for? It's just because we have a government that doesn't know what to do. So these are the kind of things that can be done. So security is not just a matter of bringing a military force. You need military force to curtail it, to contain it, but you need an economy that will be inclusive to basically resolve it finally, to get everybody busy. There are so many. We have institutions here that can provide the skills that Europe needs. And we can do international certification. There are centers that have already been internationally certified where young people can acquire the skills, get international certificate. They will be welcomed in Europe. They will be given visas from here, and they will go as honorable Nigerians, and they will be there. Look at our nurses. How many of our nurses have actually left? How many of our medical doctors have actually left? They are always leaving because they've been trained. These skills are needed. But we have got the population, we've got the institutions. We can train them. And look at what ASU is looking for. And look at what people in government are stealing. You are the people reporting this. You should know this more than I do. What is being stolen by one person is like 10 times what ASU is looking for to go back to classroom and start teaching students. So these are the kind of things that we can do. And there are lots of ideas to resolve these issues.
Before we get into the economics of it, I still want to push you a bit on the politics of it, and that is in relation to the arguments about, and these arguments went on for a very, very long time and probably have not ended, the difference between zoning and merit. I know that being one of those who were key members of the first civilian government where we returned to democratic rule, you are in a good position to look at this from that prism and watch it as it came down. And again now, because you are aspiring to be president and you are from the northern part of the country where, if it is true that zoning was supposed to provide some form of inclusion for everybody, you ought not to be contesting now, because the incumbent is also a northern candidate, and therefore it should be the turn of the South. If you take it even further, there are those who say it should be the turn of the Southeast. First, what do you make of this argument, and how do you see it playing out? Because already, as you pointed out, the PDP has, put that away and has elected a northerner as its candidate. So, but the basic argument, what do you make of it?
Well, I'm very happy you have raised this point, because this is one of the things that have detained Nigerian politics. The idea of where you come from is, in the first place, unscientific, undemocratic, and unconstitutional. And another point is that, remember, in a democracy, it's a matter of choice. So let whoever wants to come out, and let people choose. That's the whole idea. It's unconstitutional because Constitution has not determined. I mean, you don't find zoning in the Constitution. The Constitution, does not provide for any zoning. It's the parties that, use zoning as a strategy to get, if you like, votes. If they think there are people who are interested in this, and if they put forward this particular person. But look at it this way. We have done zoning in a way. What has actually zoning brought to this country? I mean, we started right from the 1999 with some kind of zoning, because it was the North that agreed that the presidency should go to the South. And that's how Obasanjo was persuaded to come and contest. And I was there when these things were being discussed, right? He finished, and then somebody came from the North, and he didn't last long. Another person came from the South, and he did what he did. And then another person came from the North. So for me, there is sufficient scientific evidence that zoning is a stupid idea, because we have done it. But look at where the country is. In the last 23 years or so, I mean, this country has become far more impoverished, despite the unprecedented oil revenue that we got during this particular period. We have seen how insecurity has escalated. So these are issues that have detained our democracy and has not allowed us to move forward. Look at the person who is coming. What is his antecedent? What is he to offer? Put him in a debate. Ask him questions. Find out. He has a record. Find out that record. What has he done when he held offices that he has held? How clean is he? How corrupt is he? All this you can find out. That is what matters. It's not where you come from. And I've said it severally. I don't want to know where my president comes from. I want to know if my president is competent, if he is credible, and if he has what it takes to fix the problems of this country. That's what is important. If you look at advanced democracies, look at America, for example. You had Bush, the father, who was president. You have Bush, the son, who became president. And did you hear anybody complaining? Look at the UK. Two brothers, the Miliband's, one time contested for the chairman of their own political party. They are all, brothers from the same parents. Yet one of them won, one of them lost. Did anybody complain? So in advanced democracies, they have gone beyond this pedestrian thinking. And we have tried it. It's not working, for goodness sake. So for me, honestly, it's part of that challenge that I said, let me come out, if only to make the point that this idea of where you come from is not important. What is important is what am I, or what anybody who claims or who wants to be elected is capable of doing. And this we should be able to figure out, because we have the CVs of these people, we have the records of these people. More importantly, we need to see the team around these people.
Let me push the argument a bit further and ask you about the other side of this, which is people saying that it seemed as if this particular republic the Fourth Republic of Nigeria, starting from 1999, was, shall we say, fundamentally flawed. And they're talking about the constitution on which it was based. Some of the records have it that even the initial operators, including President Obasanjo, did not have an idea of what was in the constitution until he took office, after he had sworn the oath of office. And that fundamentally since then, a lot of the problems that you and I have talked about, even in this interview, and which you have which you have preferred solutions to, and which you have been very scathing of the current government, have proved intractable because the Constitution does not allow for movement on many of these subjects. Is that a valid argument, do you think? And will you be one of those who will support rewriting the document to suit more, quote unquote, the aspirations of the people?
I'm an advocate for a constitutional reform. I'm an advocate for restructuring. I think this country cannot continue in the way it is at the moment. There are many things we should do. But you see, the process of doing it has been the problem. We are waiting for government all the time to do a national conference, and then from that national conference, and we forget that a lot of these people in government have their own interests. And therefore, you find in the selection of the delegates for the national conference becomes skewed so that their own interest is protected. What I would want to see, and I've made this proposal in the University of Ibadan a few months back when we had a discussion on restructuring, we don't have to wait for governments. We as citizens, we have civil society platforms. We can organize our own conferences. We can organize our own debate, and we can come up with a proposal of what we want to be in our constitution. And we can tell our people in the National Assembly, you either consider what we are proposing to you, or we will not elect you when you come back next time. It's as simple as that. If we are going to do this, then everybody will sit up. But of course, if I had the opportunity, to be the president of this country, one of the major things I would like to do is to address the issues of restructuring, the issues of constitutional reforms, so that we can have a better constitution. And this will require a lot of people's participation, not the kind of closed door things that are done that even many people in government don't even understand. We will make it open, and we will make it transparent, and we'll see exactly what people. This is what will sustain this country. I mean, keeping to a constitution that people don't understand, are not comfortable with, that doesn't encourage the integration of this country into one. So it's very important that we address this issue. So I'm an advocate for that, but like I said, I don't want the process to be just a government initiative. We need a people's initiative. If we have a government that is responsive, yes, they can then align with the people's initiative and get what needs to be done. That is what makes it a true Nigerian constitution.
You don't think that that kind of process, regardless of how it is undertaken, whether it is through the government approach, which we are used to, or through the citizens approach, which you've just referenced, could exacerbate divisions within the country, whether they be religious or ethnic? You don't think so? Because already our situation is, it seems as if there's quite a bit of tension anytime you want to discuss the country, which is why people make comments such as the unity of Nigeria is non-negotiable, so that already they take the heat out of the balloon before you start discussing at all. And that because every time we have tried to discuss, we always flounder on some of these fundamental issues of either Sharia, nationwide application, or the issue of adopting one religion or the other as a state religion, or the dominance of one ethnic group over the other, and so on. On those arguments, we are unable to cross, and therefore we are not even able to get to the more meaningful issues that could speak to the survival and strengthening of the country.
Okay, I think you are right. It's a very significant point to make. And for me, I've said it severally. Part of the obstacles to this is because we have not been able to have an elite consensus as to where we want the country to be. This is what is happening. I mean, it's one of the major obstacles. I've tried in my own way to bring in elite from all parts of the country to arrive at a consensus. Where do we want our country to be in the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years? And we can then, once we have that consensus, then we can come and then work out how best can this happen. Now, the absence of elite consensus is what is producing these divergent views. And we can create this consensus. We can craft the consensus. A lot of it has to do with the problem of communication, the problem of proper understanding, the problem of not really speaking to ourselves. We actually shout at ourselves. We abuse ourselves in the social media. We don't seem to be able to communicate effectively. We need a kind of leadership, not only in government, but also in the civil society. And we have members of the senior members of civil society, and every occasion I have to attend any occasion, because I've been in the civil society all my life, I have made this point, and I've told them we need to come together, we need to craft this elite consensus that will help us to provide, because the ordinary person who forms the majority actually is busy trying to act a living, meaning what really matters to him is his food, his shelter, hospital, school to take his children, good roads to be able to do his business, safety. I mean, basically, this is what he's looking for, right? Whoever would provide this for him, he'll go for that. But it is the elite that often complicate the problem. So we need, as elite, come together, have a consensus as to where we want our country to be in the next 10, 20 years. Let's also remember that this country is growing in population. And this population growth is coming with its own problems if we do not plan for it. At the moment, we're over 200 million, whether it's 220 or 25 or whatever, we are over 200 million. This is the consensus. By UN projection, in the next, in 2030, which is barely, less than 10 years from now, we're expected to be 300 million, which is a huge number. In 2050, we're expected to be well over 400 million, and that will make us the third largest country after India and China. The real, the leadership of this country, both elite leadership, and political leadership, and even civil society leadership, and even religious leadership, should be looking at these challenges. How do we provide freedom for this? How do we provide school? How do we provide hospital, healthcare? How do we provide jobs? How do we create an economy that can take this huge number? These are the big issues which we should be concentrated, not whether I am Hausa or Igbo or Yoruba or where I come from, but we are fixated by these because we are not looking at the bigger picture. And the elites need to come out and have a consensus and push those important matters. Because whatever tribe you think you are, wherever you come from, you are a human being. You are part of a global citizen. And there is something that binds us together. Whether you break up the country or you keep it together, whether it remains united, you are a global citizen. You can't escape this globe. And the globe is shrinking. Technology has made us basically living in one country. And therefore, it's silly to start going back to some of these ideas that have detained this country. But we need the elite to have a consensus, and this will send a signal to the ordinary people that what is important is how do we plan our future as a country.
In that case, let me now go back to what you said earlier, when you said if we had time, we would want to discuss this. Now I want to put you on the hot seat, so to speak, about your plans. What would you do about unemployment, for example? What would you do about the issue of education, with particular reference to out-of-school children and the Almajiri situation in the north? Those twin issues first, before we proceed any further, because some have said that is a time bomb that we are sitting on and that we don't seem to realize it. You are a social scientist. I know you know what it means.
Absolutely, and I'm so happy you raised this question. Even though I would prefer to preface my answer by saying that my policy focus is in three major areas.
Please go
One,
ahead.
security. Secondly, economy. And thirdly, infrastructure. Now, economy will take into consideration the aspects you have mentioned, education, because education is not good enough to just graduate students with certificate. You have to graduate them with the skills that will allow them to find jobs and to live a good life. The issue of infrastructure is not only electricity, roads, including rails, but also education and healthcare. Having said that, let me go back to the specific areas. I'm opportune to actually be leading a group of NGOs, about 24, all of whom are working in the area of the girl, of the Almajiri child, the children that are out of school. And we have been working in the last 3 years. We have been having workshops. We have been having strategy sessions. And we have come up with documents. We have got 4 different documents now. One of them is simply a bibliography. We did a research to establish everything that has been written, online, offline, in the archives, anywhere on the Almajiri issue, conferences. So we have established a full bibliography on every research, every paper that has been written on this Almajiri, and every conference that has been done, whether in Nigeria or outside Nigeria. We have also done, we have about 5 cohorts. These cohorts, we sort of, disintegrate, or we sort of broke down the complex issue into 5 cohorts. One, there is the area of advocacy and parental responsibility. This is something that has to be done for us to eradicate the children out of school phenomena. We have also looked at the curriculum. We have also looked at the different models, and we have developed a number of models. We have also looked at the legislative aspect. What legislations do we need to do, both at the state level, at the federal level, to ensure, and we have also looked at the case of funding. We have put experts in this field. They have produced these reports, and these reports are available now for implementation. We are trying to have a national summit on the out-of-school children, where we'll bring in the executive arm, the legislative arm, and we have engaged them already. We bring in the traditional institutions, we bring in the religious scholars, we bring in all the stakeholders and present a national plan where everybody will see the role he's going to play. Unless we have got this integrated plan where everybody will implement his own bit, and there'll be a coordinating, monitoring and evaluation center that will do an evaluation every year to say A, B, C, D have not done their own, or they have done this much. We need, so that we can monitor this for the next 10, 20 years until this problem is over. But we have got a plan, and we have visited countries that have had this problem. They have resolved them. Indonesia is one of them. Malaysia is another. Turkey much earlier. Morocco is another. Sudan is another. We have gotten all the best practices in these countries. You go to these countries, you don't find any child out of school at the moment. They used to have them, but they have solved the problem. And these are the kind of best practices we have integrated into the solutions we have. So we have a solution for this. But you see, again, in terms of education, we need to shift from emphasis in universities to skills. China, one of the things that it did that gave it this advantage and boosted its economy, it converted many of its own universities into polytechnics so they can concentrate on skills. And this is why they are now producing all the goods they are producing. If you have an iPhone, you know that nearly 90% of it is all from China. If you have any other thing that, computers and everything are done there because they've got the skills. It's a country of skills. And this is why almost all the production in the world, is taking place in China. If you see goods in Europe lined up in Marks and Spencer, if you actually check, you'll see that they've been produced in China. So the point I'm making is that we need to, skew our educational system to be more in favor of skills. It is these skills that will provide jobs. At the moment, for example, if you look at our agriculture, generally we don't do production. We only do production, we don't do processing. And Brazil is one country that has, is leading in processing. And because of this, they have created a huge number of jobs. And by just processing, fixing value chains, the amount of job we will create for young people is enormous. In other words, when you produce maize, you don't sell maize just like that. When you produce soya beans, you don't sell soya beans just like that. You crush it, you take out the soya oil, you produce the cake, you do a number of things. And these things are going to sell much, much higher than your own soya beans that you export some other places, and then you go back importing soya oil. So there are lots of ideas, on the books, which were produced earlier that we can implement. But you see, it requires the political will, it requires a team of expertise, and who have the passion to put this, country on a better trajectory than we are at the moment.
At the situation that we have now, some of those I have spoken to have said that whether it be security, in education, you yourself have referenced it in answer to the question about out-of-school children, where you say that other countries that were in Nigeria's position not too long ago have solved some of those problems. And therefore, we need to take a look at how they did it and see how we can adopt some of those methods here. Which brings me to foreign policy. It's one of the areas in which it does appear that we don't pay too much attention when we're discussing politics. We don't talk about foreign policy initiatives, relations with neighboring countries, and how that impacts on security, the economy, and all of that. So I want to ask you, what is your plan with reference to foreign policy and how that will affect all these things that have been mentioned?
Very good. You may remember I was chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee in the House from 2003 to 2007.
That's part of the reason. That's part of the reason why I'm asking the question.
I had opportunity to visit a good sample of our embassies in Europe, in Africa, in the US, and I've seen what it is. Before you even get to the foreign policy, we are not maintaining our embassies. One of the things I remember we brought in, which President Obasanjo accepted to do, which he did, but I think after he left and I left, this thing changed, was that the funding of our embassies will be direct from the Ministry of Finance into their own account. Because what we discovered is that once it goes to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they keep cutting part of it, and therefore you find our embassies in a dilapidated position. You find in some cases we are owing rent, some telephone have been cut, some in fact gas and heating has been cut, and so we are not even ready to do any foreign policy, because if your officers are in distress all the time, looking for loans, where do they have the mind to actually project, your country? So this is something which has not changed very much, and it's something that is easy to resolve. But unfortunately, just like everything is not working here at home, we have included that, we included our missions abroad. And ask any ambassador, ask any foreign officer, you will hear stories, of real distress, so pitiful. So having said that, foreign policy is basically an extension of your internal policy. It is what you want as a country. It is where you want to be in the next 10, 20 years, 30 years. For example, we want to be a regional power, or we want to be, in fact, an African power. It can be military, it can be economic, it can be an intellectual power, being we want to produce the knowledge economy of Africa. Once we agree on that, then we take the steps that every country takes to get there. It is these things that form the foreign policy. And it is these things that actually now spell out to be a a regional power, for example. You need to be in good relationship with your neighbors in West Africa. What can you do to support them? We have a number of projects, but we are not reaping the real results. We have a lot of people in diaspora, in different, especially in Europe and America, doing very well. We're not utilizing, we're not leveraging that diaspora community. We don't even talk to them. When they have problems, our embassies abroad don't even listen to them. And this is part of the problems we are facing. We're not making the best of what we can. So for me, foreign policy starts at home. You have to decide where you want to be in the world in the next 10, 20, 30 years. Once you decide that, then you now say, okay, what do I need to get there? I need to do this, I need to do that, I have got a lot of things that will give me comparative and competitive advantages. We do a sector scan and see what is it that we have. We have lots of things that we can use to leverage our position and to become what we want to become in the Committee of Nations in this in the next 10, 20 years. So for me, foreign policy is an extension of internal policy, if you like, and is something that we can craft along the line we agree, and is something that we can implement. At the moment, our foreign policy doesn't even define exactly where we want to be in the next 10, 20 years. They talk about economic diplomacy, they talk about Africa, centerpiece of this and that, and it's all jargons. There is nothing really that takes place to implement it. In fact, we are so soaked in our internal problems that we are not able to really make any impact outside.
Indeed. Thank you very much for your perspective, Dr. Usman Bugaje, and best of luck in your presidential ambition. We'll be talking to you as time progresses. But thank you for your time today.
It's my great pleasure. Thank you very much.
That's our program today. We would, of course, like to hear from you on the conversation. Our social media handles are right there on your screen. You can also listen to this and previous episodes of the program via our podcast. Please visit our website, channelstv.com, to get started. I am Ladi Akeredoluale. Goodbye.